Hi, Erick Schonfeld here with Bret Taylor, CTO of Facebook and one of the co-founders of FriendFeed. Facebook just recently introduced some new features that are going to be rolling out or have already rolled out, primarily the timeline and ticker. And just briefly explain what those are and why you did those.
Sure. So there's sort of three main things that we launched. One was the new newsfeed and ticker. One was a very significant change to our profile page, which we call timeline. And then the third thing was what we call Open Graph, which is a developer launch, but it's sort of a new type of app that can run and integrate with Facebook, and it's really geared towards integrating with timeline specifically.
Right.
So basically, the main thing that timeline is all of your life on one page. You know, previously, your profile was reverse chronological, and it kind of ended depending how active you were. For like, it was a couple days worth of content, maybe a week if you were less active, and then it just kind of fell off a cliff. You could click more there, but you'd only do it maybe a few times, and like everything that you had shared or posted earlier in your time on Facebook was just lost. More and more people are using their Facebook profile page as sort of their online identity. You know, it's like the thing on the footer of their email, or if you meet someone at a party, it's how you look them up. And thinking about it as sort of your online identity, it felt like that last 5 minutes of your life was a pretty superficial look at that. I mean, just one example I used actually at F8, but it's true. I had a baby now 9 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
And thank you, I appreciate it. And if you looked at the old profile page of my stuff, you just see, you know, a couple links I shared earlier this week. You'd miss out on this like very significant event that's hardly historical at this point. Trust me, I still don't sleep. And if you look at the timeline version of my life, you'll get some of that at the top, some of the recent stuff, and you scroll a little bit down and you'll see a bunch of baby pictures and, you know, my birth announcement. You scroll down a little bit before that, and you know,
and it's all algorithmic. You're not pinning it necessarily, right?
Well, it's actually a mix. It's completely under your control, so you can actually pin anything in any place. So you can choose exactly what you want in your timeline. In practice, though, you're not going to do that every second of every day, and so we, based on your previous things you've pinned, or the like, if you typically like photos more than status updates, we'll look at that, and the stuff that you haven't explicitly pinned, we'll use that to algorithmically select for the default timeline that will be there. Right,
and the Open Graph part of this is to allow developers to insert actions from applications into the timeline and into the ticker.
Yeah, and you know, there's been a lot of talk around Open Graph because it is a really new type of app. You know, if you use Spotify with Facebook or RDO with Facebook or one of the news sites that's integrated with Open Graph, like all of your song listens on that app.
It's too noisy. I mean, I think that's sort of the big question, right? Is, you know, are we going from this era of sharing to oversharing, and how do you limit the deluge?
It's a really good question, and I think like it. There's actually two parts to sharing. Most people, because of like services that are more sort of broadcast centric, like Twitter, they think of what we call our news feed, and I think Twitter would call the stream, as like the reason you share something. Facebook actually started a little differently, and when Facebook started, there was no news feed, and it was a bunch of profile pages, and you'd actually navigate to people's profile pages. And when you think of a profile page, it's not sort of a broadcast thing, it's more about self-expression. And we feel like that has been a really important part of the Facebook experience. If you think of like when I was in high school, I had a bunch of patches on my backpack, which was like all the bands that I liked, and I liked really bad punk music. And music and videos and news really fall into this category of self-expression, where it's like, if I'm making a page for my friends to visit to represent who I am, the music that I'm listening to, or the videos that I'm watching, or the news that I've been reading, or the runs that I've taken with Nike Plus, are all a big part of like my identity. It doesn't mean that I like every time I listen to a song I want to spam my friends, or every time I take a run I'm going to be like, hey guys.
But that's what's happening.
Well,
that's what's happening because the people, the app developers, are choosing that as the default.
Well, it turns out that like the goal of Ticker and Newsfeed was to address this, where when you install one of these apps, get to choose, you know, how you want it on your timeline. A lot of folks haven't experienced timeline yet. It's not rolled out. It will be rolled out completely in the next few weeks. But the experience will be, you'll be able to see in line exactly how it will look. You'll be able to curate it. And on the newsfeed side, we don't want your newsfeed filled with a bunch of random stuff. And we really want newsfeed to be what we call sort of intentional posts, like status updates, photos, really like clear, sort of like, I want everyone to see this posts on Facebook.
Right.
And aggregations of just the most interesting stuff from Open Graph. So it's not just like your friend listened to a song, but like 4 friends listened to a song by Lady Gaga, or
time.
5 of your friends took a run in Dolores Park. And really trying to be sort of the newspaper view. And Ticker, on the other hand, is sort of the complement of that.
Right.
It really like takes, the spirit of it is almost like a stock market ticker. It's just sort of like real time. You don't need to stare at it. It's just if you happen to catch something out of the corner of your eye,
Right.
you can actually experience it with your friends in real time.
I mean, it kind of reminds me of Friend Feed in a way, right? Which I still remember, the experience of just it constantly flowing down, right? Which was something that was very like early adopter-ish, and like only like me and Robert Scoble enjoy that, I think. But there was a few more people.
Yeah.
But right, this idea that there's so much happening just within my friends that it is this constant ticker. But even back then, those were all curated, right? Those were all selected things that people shared.
Well,
now you've kind of like amplified that,
It's not, I think it's actually just the way we think of these applications. I'm sorry if I cut you off. It's
just an order of magnitude more, and it's information. It's not more information. It's actually information poor, because if I'm seeing every song that you're listening to on Spotify, that's not as useful to me as just knowing which song you like, right? That you're recommending, or which song you and 3 of my other friends are listening to or have listened to, or something that filters it in a way that it's useful information as opposed to this.
I think it's a really good point, and there's a couple of different things. One is that a lot of this is really trying to find that balance between self-expression and sharing, because like I think there's a large class of things that I want on my profile. Like I love a report in my timeline of here's the artists I listened to most the past month, and with timeline that can really happen. I just decide to use Spotify or RDO or iHeartRadio or one of the music services, and automatically my timeline is like reflects these really like core personal attributes of who I am.
Right.
On the other side, on the consumption side, on Newsfeed and Ticker, Newsfeed is really what you describe, or we're trying to make it that, where it is really synthesized, it's algorithmically driven, and it's trying to present the most relevant information from your network. Ticker, in many ways, I think of as like almost the next generation of presence. It's not valuable because a piece of content is valuable specifically. It might be valuable because it's from a close friend of yours.
Right.
And just knowing what they're up to is valuable. It's valuable because it's real time. One of the features of our music service is something called Listen Together. If from Ticker you press play, it will pop up a chat window and you're listening to the song at the exact same point in the song, and you can talk about it.
Right, that's cool.
There's where it is sort of like presence. It's not like your friend needed you to know they're listening to that song. It's more, hey, what are my friends up to right now? And that temporal, real-time aspect to it, we're trying to, placing it next to Newsfeed was really about sort of tapping into sort of both of those things.
It's also a shared experience. You're creating a shared experience,
Exactly.
right?